Welcome to Season 4, episode number 37 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2022 Italian GP race review, and as always, we are proud members of the Ship It Studios podcast network. You've got Andy, and she's back tonight. Welcome back, Deanna. How's it going?
It's really good. I'm happy to be back. Back from kind of out west, so happy to be back to my East Coast time zone and my 9 a.m. races. I don't know how people do it out there. It's really, I love a morning race. It's great, but not too early.
Oh, I like the morning races as opposed to the evening races. We're about to get our fill of the evening races in the 2 a.m., 1 a.m. time slots when the races are ending. So, I'm not as surprised as I used to be. I suspect there may be some power naps in my future to try to get these races in, but we'll do the best that we can. As always, if you have found our show, welcome, and you can find our show on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast. Please see our link tree in our show notes. Do us a solid. If you're on YouTube, click the like and subscribe button, or if you're on your favorite podcasting app, click the five-star button. If you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify, it just helps us bring our content to you that much quicker. You can email our show, and thank you to the number of people who've done that at chatnow@outlapf1.com. You can check out our wonderful website, www.outlapf1.com. If you are a new F1 fan, number one, welcome. You picked a good time. Please feel free, if you're brand new, to check out our F1 for Beginners. It's our Season 4, Episode 4, and our series on YouTube under our show notes as well. Get you all read up and talking like an expert, and that's what we aim to do. As always, the members of the Outlap F1 Nation continue to step up. Thank you so much to our monetary supporters, Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Cody Walsh, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of the hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, do us a favor, see our link in our show notes. $1, $5, whatever you'd like to do, we will take it. We will be very happy, and we promise to put it right back into the show. We're not taking any pay here, so we'll do what we can to try to make the show better and push things forward creatively as well. If you're so inclined, please do check out our partner Manscaped. Gets 20% off, gets free shipping with our code OUTLAP. That is OUTLAP, all one word. James is not here to model it, and I don't know if he'd be wearing it right now, but our good friend Vincenzo Landino has the Scuderia's back shirt along with some others. Maybe it's the Scuderia is present. Maybe that's where they are right now. I don't know. But feel free to check out the F1guy.com for that. Also, one of our newer sponsors, Athletic Greens. Please do check out athleticgreens.com/emerging for some delicious and nutritious goods. Good stuff to help start your day right. And our final sponsor, the Portage Park Development Project, the thriving community in the Upland Metaverse. If you're from Chicago, Portage Park will sound familiar because the Upland Metaverse is based on real-world cities and properties, and Portage Park is an actual neighborhood here in Chicago. The Metaverse version of Portage Park is the most developed neighborhood in Upland, with over 700 supported members and property owners enjoying competitions, community initiatives, and local shops, with monthly town hall meetings to connect with fellow Uplanders. And now racing is coming to Upland. Portage Park is developing a racing team ready to fight for the top step at the podium. They have a training academy for drivers and racetracks in development, making the most of their shops and local attractions. They want to show the best that Portage Park has to offer. Come join them. Links to the Portage Park Discord server, racing track maps, socials are in our podcast show notes. As always, they hope to see you, and we hope to see you in the Metaverse. Whew, a lot of stuff there, but it's good. Good we have lots of stuff there. So we will start with our headline of the day. Deanna, kick us off because I need a minute to catch my breath.
Yes, I think headline is just that Max is completely untouchable. The combination of Max and the level that he's driving at, the car itself, the strategy, and the execution from the entire crew at Red Bull, I just think that entire combination is nearly unbeatable at the moment. It's just unreal. Starting from the back of the grid, middle of the grid, front of the grid, he's going to find a way to win. And it's just nobody's had any remote kind of response to him. So just another kind of dominant performance today.
Yep, and James and John have chimed in. I'll read James's first. He says, finishing under the safety car is the lamest shit in all of sport. I would tend to agree with him there.
Yep.
And for John, he said Michael Masso, I don't know what that's referring to, is still eagerly awaiting by the phone for Karen Horner to call and indicate that we need just one racing lap, just one lap, Michael. Guessing Red Bull Racing is happy that the rules were applied correctly this time. In all seriousness, though, call it anticlimactic if you want, but at least the rules were followed. And for my headline, I'm going a bit of a different direction, but I kind of with you, Deanna, lost in all of the discussions after this race about stuff that probably really doesn't matter currently, is the fact that Max Verstappen can literally just walk his way to the world championship at this point. As I've said many times, here's the line, come compete with us on there, and we'll see what brings. And nobody wants to do it. It just seems, as soon as somebody gets close, something happens. Either it's bad strategy, the car breaks down, engine penalties, or whatever. It's all just seems to be coming up Max specifically right now. It's not just all Red Bull. It's just Max's side of the garage, even more specifically than that. And also just, shout out, I guess, to the Twitterverse, because I saw a lot of spiking of the ball today on Twitter. And it's not just because today was the first day of the NFL, but if that makes you happy, so be it. I hate to tell you, but it's ultimately going to be an exercise in futility and just a life lesson. Hey, sometimes life is unfair and sometimes bad things happen to good people. I think if you just go by that, you'll probably understand a lot of what I'm talking about. And for that, we will leave it there. We will get into our race weekend proper. And it started all the way back on Saturday. And I don't know why it seems when you and I have these, Deanna, that it always feels like Saturday is a day and a half, 3 days ago.
There's
but
always a million things.
Yes. So we will get into our qualifying recap. This is how they actually qualified according to lap times. We then have a special segment about how we will translate what was here into the final grid. So hang on, let me cue up the sound. All right. So starting in P20, qualifying in P20 was the number 47 of Mick Schumacher. P19 was Kevin Magnussen. P18, Lance Stroll. P17 was Sebastian Vettel. And not advancing out of Q1 was Nicholas Latifi in the Williams. Starting in P15, at least on qualifying pace, was Yuki Tsunoda. P14, Joe Granu. P13, have not mentioned this, Nick DeVries. We'll clarify in just a minute. P12 was Valtteri Bottas. P11, Esteban Ocon. P10, advancing through to the Q3 shootout, was Fernando Alonso. P9, Pierre Gasly. P8, Daniel Ricciardo. P7, Lando Norris. P6, George Russell. P5, Lewis Hamilton. P4, Sergio Perez. P3, Carlos Sainz. P2 was Max Verstappen. And in P1 with a lap time of 1 minute 20.161, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. All right, I guess first headline there, where the heck did Nick DeVries come from? He's sipping coffee Friday morning, and the next thing you know, he's in the car, and he's in a Williams, and he's doing quite well. He was originally scheduled to be, he did do FP1 for Aston Martin. Alex Albon comes down with appendicitis early Saturday morning, and as per contract, he was the reserve driver on standby and in the Williams and making it out of Q1. So that was at least dang impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and first of all, hope Albon recovers quickly here.
Yep.
But yeah, really putting on a great show, great little audition potentially for that Williams seat, potentially replacing Nikki. Those two names got me mixed up the past couple days, but I think we've sorted it out. But yeah, to get out of Q1, I mean, it is really unfortunate that Albon couldn't be there, because I think this was the one track that Williams was going to be absolutely amazing at. That's the only thing they've really had in their back pocket the entire season, is that straight line speed. And Monza is obviously the best track in the world for that. So a little unfortunate we didn't get to see him do what he can with that car, but really great to see DeVries finally, after winning F2 probably 2-3 years ago, winning a Formula E championship, finally getting the kind of shot at an F1 seat that he really deserves. And he did a great job getting out of Q1. Really wish he would have he had that one mistake on his final run in Q2. It would have been fun to see kind of what else he could have done from there. But overall, just great start just in qualifying. And we'll talk more about the race in a minute. But yeah.
No, I love from sipping coffee to being in a race suit. I mean, and not knowing any of the systems of that car. I mean, the ask is not easy by any stretch. I mean, these F1 most of the F1 drivers, they test and they practice and everything else. He had an FP1 session in not the same car and still managed to get it out of Q1. So amazing effort. My personal highlight of qualifying there. The other highlight, it's always fun to see a Ferrari do well in Monza. So got to hand it to Charles Leclerc, at least for Saturday. Well done. Don't get used to this running order. This was not how the grid started, because then we got a lovely trying to calculate the final starting grid became, let's just say, a thing. A 4.5 hour thing, as it turned out. And when the educated people can't figure it out, there's something wrong with the system. But here's, I think, how it all actually plays out. So we knew Verstappen had a 5-place grid penalty, so he has to move down to P7, so he does that. Carlos Sainz, we knew, declared going to the back of the grid, so that happens. Sergio Perez takes 10 places. We knew Lewis Hamilton was going back to the back of the grid. We knew Esteban Ocon was taking a 5-place grid penalty. We knew Valtteri Bottas was taking a 15-place grid penalty. We knew Yuki Tsunoda, for a variety of reasons, was going to the back of the grid. We knew Kevin Magnussen was taking a 15-place grid penalty. So when you do all of that first in that order, then you close the grid up. That's where you slot Verstappen in, because his was the latest penalty and his was the least amount of places. You slot Verstappen in, then all of the rest of the grid can finally form up behind him. And voila, we have an order. Now, there were two orders that were pretty much, it was all about where Max was. One prevailing order said Max is going to be in P4. There was another one that said Max is going to be in P7. He ultimately ended up in P7. The first order also had Ocon only losing 1 place. I think he loses a net 4. But that's really because other people had so many penalties. I guess the two questions. One, these engine rules aren't fitting. We got to do something about it. And two, this penalty system is pretty ridiculous. I've never seen it quite this bad.
Yeah, when you have over a third of the season left, we're getting close to, and I'm talking kind of back to Spa. We did this once, and then we're kind of doing this again times 2, it feels like. And then we still have 6 more races left after this. And of course, there's going to be more engine penalties, and we're just going to be going through all of this over and over and over. So there is first a big problem with the engine allocation. I think either the engine allocations improve, up, maybe we turn down the engines. I don't know, what's the best solution here if we're trying to get through the cost cap too. But obviously it's a flawed system. It's failing. Something needs to be changed drastically. And then kind of second from there is how we determine the order of the grid. This sport is so obsessed with kind of data. They have amazing data scientists. Why we just don't have a little program we could say, here's X, Y, and Z penalty happened, and we just spit out an order within 5 minutes. I don't know. I guess it's not stated somewhere. I think they went off of the order that the penalties were incurred instead of the qualifying order. So I think that's kind of where we're getting those two main kind of arguments on who was where, which, it is kind of confusing because when you have people going to the back of the grid, if they didn't qualify, if they didn't put an effort in a lap, then they would be put in the order that their penalties were incurred. But if they did put in a lap, then they're put in on the order of the basis that they qualified if they all have back of the grid penalties. So it's not very clear on what the order should be. I personally think, in my head, it makes sense maybe that we see the order that everybody qualifies in. This also puts more emphasis on qualifying and those people that need to qualify. And then we apply the penalties in order that people qualify. I kind of think that makes the best case for A, qualifying as a show, and B, kind of clarity to everybody in the world, and not this just kind of chaos and 4.5 hours to decide. So that is my thoughts on the whole situation.
No, I'm completely with you on that. We have a bunch of new fans. We know we have a lot of new fans. And to me, if I'm coming in and I watch something happen on a Saturday and I see, for example, Kevin Magnussen qualifies P19. It's not a good day for him. I'm not trying to pick on him. But then you tune in on Sunday, and he's all of a sudden 4 places higher. That's confusing. And I would go, what the heck happened? And kudos to whoever the account was that made the animation that I think finally explained all of it in the proper context. I think it's gotten over 1 million views at this point. But that's how crazy this was, that you had to do it step by agonizing step. And when big media outlets publish something and then take them down because they got it wrong, when the educated people get it wrong, something wrong here. It doesn't make sense. So if you were frustrated by this, trust us, we were frustrated by it too. It was not fun to try to figure out. At some point, I just had to kind of go, you know what? I'm just going to wait till I see an FIA document. It didn't come out till almost 2 o'clock local time here, which is ridiculous when qualifying ends at 10 o'clock in the morning. So, just not a good system. Hopefully, sometimes it takes the absurd to make changes in this sport. This was pretty absurd. So maybe maybe we'll see some change, although I tend to doubt it.
Yeah. We didn't get the greatest result from the Spa rain debacle. Now we're down to 3 hours or 2 hours in a 3-hour window and all that chaos. So I'm hoping this one gets resolved a bit better. But I think Spa, nobody started in the place that they qualified. And here, nobody started except for Leclerc in the place that they qualified. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And it makes it so difficult to watch and understand unless you are fully in the sport all the time, which I'm going to say 98% of the people probably are. So, yeah.
And even if you are, we were still all getting it wrong. That's the part that I don't understand. The educated people, the ones who claim to know, maybe I claim to know something. I got it freaking wrong. So, and I'm watching the people in real time not get it right either. So, just a bit of a cluster. Hopefully this is the last time this season it'll be this bad, but I would anticipate we're going to see more, people going out of place in qualifying. So we knew this was going to be a thing, and it was, and it may continue to be. All right, so we will now transition into the race proper on Sunday, and as always, we will start with our back markers. The non-finishers included Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Daniel Ricciardo, and the first classified finisher was Kevin Magnussen in P16. Nicholas Latifi comes home in P15. Yuki Tsunoda in P14. And Valtteri Bottas, with all of his engine penalties, manages to pull off a P13. I guess we will probably start with the headline grabber, the guy who caused the late safety car. Guy deserved better today, to be honest. I mean, I've been picking on Danny Rick for, a few races. He brought it today. I don't know what it is specifically about Monza that brings it back out of him, but this was the Danny Rick we thought we were going to get in McLaren. He did the hard work of the first stint. He managed to keep everybody behind him. He was defending really well. He played the team game with Lando at one point when Lando was on the soft tires. He's going to come home in P8. It's supposed to be a really good day for my McLaren boys, with both Alpines having problems, and the Mercedes engine goes kaput with 5 laps to go.
Yeah, this looks like the new Monza race winner curse. We had Leclerc in 2019, retired in 20. Gasly won in 20, retired in 21. And now poor Ricciardo, his victim, winning in 21 and retiring today.
Yeah, but because it was such a late safety car, we then ended up with the lovely, what the heck do we do late in a race? I guess we'll open the discussion now. I'm sure we will discuss it a few times because I've seen some of the fan emails already. It was the major topic, I think, of discussion after the race. I don't know that any of our opinions have changed since last year. I think they're pretty much the same thing. Dee, I'll let you go, and then I'll chime in with mine.
I mean, I have literally been saying this since Abu Dhabi. We just need a rule that says if there's a full safety car deployed within the final 5 laps, we throw a red flag and we let shoot out to the end. I think it's a very clean break for everybody. I think everybody would be happy with that. If it's instated in the rules, then we just go with that. I think the FIA was trying to get away from the accusation after Massey saying like it's all about the show and trying to make it more performative and not being like pure racing. So I think that's why they kind of stuck to their guns. But I mean, you can, not that I want to excuse what Massey did, but you can kind of see in situations like today, yes, it was a very depressing, anticlimactic finish, and especially after last year being one of the craziest seasons of all time. Not wanting to end under safety car. It is. See, you weren't happy. To the people that were like all yelling about it, you weren't happy with ending under safety car. You wouldn't have been then. So what is your driver anyway? So like it just, we can have this blend and everybody can be happy and we can red flag with a few laps left and then we can have a shootout and everybody can fun and fine and happy and it won't be drama with breaking rules or following rules. We can just, anyway, it's same old.
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, no, I mean, I'm in the same position that I was back last December. I mean, I feel like I'm going to say it again. I think there ought to be a pre-prescribed chart of under 10 laps to go. There is so much metadata in Formula One, it's not funny. We know how long it takes to clear most cars in what sectors of what tracks. You can run this analysis. I don't think it's going to even strain the computers all that much to do it. So you take what your average time to clear a car is and you say, okay, with 10 laps to go, the average time to clear a car is 3 laps. Okay, we can have a full safety car and get a regular restart in with there. 9 laps to go, 8 laps to go, 7 laps to go. Now it's going to get tighter. Okay, maybe that's our red flag zone from I would say from lap 7 to maybe 3 laps to go. That's our red flag zone. We're going to stop it. We're going to do it. If a car goes off with under 3 laps to go, yeah, if you can't clear it, then I think it is okay to end under a safety car if that's the case. But I want it to be pre-prescribed. I want everybody on the track to know this is what procedure we're doing. This is how we're doing it. It flashes up from race control. There's no ambiguity. There should not be any ambiguity about what's going on here, regardless of whether the car takes 5 minutes to clear or 20 minutes to clear. It should just be what it's supposed to be. The fact that we're still coming back to this random answer of sometimes we get a finish and sometimes we don't, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Like, I wanted to see the finish. The guy that I cheer for got screwed over by it. His own pit wall put him back a position that he didn't need to give up, as it turned out, because he thought we were going to have at least one more lap of racing. So, annoyed, I think is the term. Yes, I guess the letter of the law was followed. I think this group of FIA race director and stewards have wanted to be more conservative. Letter of the law, no more, no less. And that's what they did. They literally did letter of the law, no more, no less. But it killed the show. I mean, we could have had an actual really fun finish to what had been kind of a ho-hum, not a ho-hum race, but it wasn't great. It wasn't like epic. Mm-hmm. But so I see both sides of it to a certain extent, but just be consistent. Just come up with whatever you want to do, however you want to formulate it. Let's just get everybody to agree to it and move on, because I think that's the ultimate way to do it.
And I understand after the controversy of Abu Dhabi, I understand why they want to do it. I just hope after a situation like today, we can look at next year and we can kind of cut back a little bit and say, maybe that was a little too far in this one direction. There's a very easy, happy medium here, I think, between kind of following a rule set, but also providing everybody the entertainment, because that's kind of what we're all here for at the end of the day. Yeah,
exactly. People spent a lot of time trying to get into that. Yeah, I mean, people spent a lot of time trying to get into that venue this morning, and we'll talk about that when we get to awards. And the venue didn't do them any favors. They should have at least gotten the finish that they all paid for, if you ask me. But anyway, we'll leave that there. Any other thoughts on anybody in the back markers before we move on?
I mean, brutal weekend for Aston Martin. Both drivers retiring there and just kind of going absolutely nowhere ever. Also same kind of really rough for Haas. And then Latifi, we'll talk more about De Vries in a second, but he fell about 6 places at the start and then went absolutely nowhere. And we will talk about where his teammate in his very first ever race ended up. Tsunoda kind of mess of a weekend, and Bottas, that Alfa Romeo really hasn't looked so hot in recent weeks. So I think that covers everybody.
Yeah, I thought the surprise in here, Fernando Alonso DNFing, the Alpine breaking down after, many weeks of some really, really good form. That was a bit of a shocker. He'd complained, I think, one time on the radio that he thought maybe he was having some power unit issues, or he didn't understand why the deployment wasn't what he was expecting. And then when they pitted him, all of a sudden they told him to get out of the car. So whatever it was happened quickly and was probably done to try to save whatever was left of that power unit.
Yeah, and it was really unfortunate because I think everybody was kind of looking towards Alpine and Alonso, especially with everybody else having these grid penalties. And I think he had the one issue in Q3, so he didn't set a lap time, and then having the issue in the race as well. So, yeah, that was, I think a lot of people had predicted him for a podium kind of coming into today. So, really unfortunate to see that. And now he'll probably have an engine penalty in the next race if he's starting at the back of the grid. So, such is life nowadays.
Yeah. All right, so we'll leave the back markers in the back where they are. We will then move into our midfield, and that has in P12, Mick Schumacher, P11, Esteban Ocon, P10, Joe Granu, the driver of the day as voted by the fans in P9, the number 45, which is not his actual number, Nick De Vries in the Williams. Congratulations. Points on debut, hard to do. I was impressed. P8, Pierre Gasly. P7, Lando Norris. P6, Sergio Perez. P5, Lewis Hamilton. And in P4, he passed a bunch of cars throughout the course of the day as well, was the 55 of Carlos Sainz. Let's start with Nicky the boy coming out, like I said, having coffee Friday morning to scoring points. Amazing, I think, effort all weekend long. I saw, I think what it was at the Formula Racers account said he complained after the race that his shoulders were hurting, and that's because he was carrying the Williams all weekend long. I would say that's pretty accurate. Dee, what's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, he stayed in that P8, P9 the entire day. And I mean, definitely that car's pretty slick in a straight line. But I mean, to keep up and stay kind of in that train, I think was led by Ricardo most of the race, but kind of the Gasly Norris show was in that group as well. But just to stick with them, he did get help from his fellow countryman towards the end. Max was lapping as I think Zhou was within a second, was catching De Vries, but Max inserted himself right before turn one. And that kind of gave De Vries over the second gap, and then the safety car came out, which helped as well. But so he owes a little bit of a thank you to Max, I think, for keeping him P9. But yeah, just overall amazing. Again, like you said, score points on your race debut when you didn't think you were going to be in the car on Saturday morning. So just really impressive all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, I totally concur with everything that you just said there. I was pleasantly shocked. I figured the qualifying for him and the grid bump because of all the penalties. I figured he'd probably finish like P13, P14, and that would have been kind of all she wrote. But it does go to say the one, like you said earlier, the one thing about the Williams car, it's good in a straight line. It's really good in a straight line. In fact, some of their sector one times in qualifying were setting purple sectors. So, that was, I think, very, very impressive just as a team. That revised aero kit is working. It certainly works in places like Spa. It certainly works in places like here. So, kudos to the team for that. But just a hell of an individual effort to not only get there, but when he was there to stay there. Yeah, DRS trains are what they are, but you still got to make it work. You still got to get through the pit stops. I was nothing but impressed with the effort from Nick De Vries today.
And pushing Latifi back to 21st.
Yes, he therefore pushes our friend Nicholas Latifi back into P21 in the 20 driver championship. I think any aspirations he had for keeping his seat have probably evaporated. Be interesting to see now if Nick De Vries now inserts himself into the silly season popcorn maker of things that pop here and there. It's been a crazy 3-4 weeks. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about it. We went off the air in Hungary, and then everything went berserk.
Oh yeah, it's just been a wild time. I've already seen De Vries connected with Alpine 5 seconds after this race. So, anyway, we'll just let.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate anymore. Last
so
time I started
rumors.
to speculate,
Everybody's been rumored in every seat. And yeah,
everybody's going everywhere and all the time right now, and it's for like the 4 seats. So, it will sort itself out.
yes.
We'll bring it to you when it does.
Yes.
I don't even want to try to speculate anymore because the last time I speculated, I think.
I got screwed immediately.
Yes, exactly. Well, no, I said, yeah, you'd call Alonso, but he'd never go there. And 8 hours later, as I'm posting the episode, the tweets are coming out. I'm like,
yeah. It's bad. It's bad.
Yep. All right. Moving from Nick DeVries, do want to talk a little bit about Lando Norris's day, obviously, as I'm the McLaren fan of the show here. He dropped at the start, and to be honest, I was shocked that it wasn't worse because the first thing I hear after they do the standard radio check is, you're not going to have your launch maps. And I went, oh, shit. So it means he's completely on his own. He can't get coached into how to do it because it's a formation lap. And he got off in the formation lap, and it was tough. And when he launched off the line, pretty much what I was expecting to happen happened. Car went into anti-stall like 3 times, but he only managed to drop like three or four places. So it was better than I actually thought. He just kept having stuff thrown in his way, and it just kept overcoming it. You know, he had the long pit stop. I was able to overcome that. At the end, they tried to make him racy. They put him on a set of soft tires. I thought it was the right move. The safety car comes out. They were going to pit him for another set of soft tires to try to get back past Perez. However, the safety car never came in, so thus ended that. Might have had P6, P5, but P7. I'm telling myself I have to be happy with this because I think he drove a really good race in spite of the result.
Agreed.
All right, we'll leave it there then. P6, Sergio Perez. Anything about Hamilton or Sainz?
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton, I don't know where he came from. That first few laps, he was struggling. He was way in the back, but just kind of had a monster stint on those mediums, and then switched over to the softs and just kind of had a really great pace at the end there. Perez kind of lost out on a place, unfortunately, at the end, similar to Lando Norris. Although he was helped by Norris pitting as well under the safety car. But, he pitted prior to the safety car. He had hards on all that race, but he had about a 14-second gap back to Russell. So hindsight being 2020, he would have probably made it out just fine and could have kept on to 5th. But I think it was a halfway decent recovery given the whole brake issue thing was on fire for like a lap. So I think he did a pretty decent job with where he was and again, could have finished 5th overall. And then finally kind of for that group, Carlos Sainz unfortunately finished 4th. Again, I think without the safety car would have challenged Russell for 3rd, but that recovery through those first like 20 laps was incredible, beautiful, lovely stuff.
Yeah, he was slicing and dicing through the field and making the Ferrari work and thrilling the crowd because every time he would make a pass, it was audible. You could hear it, in the background audio. But good job for him. I think it was just the engine penalty, or he could have maybe even challenged, for not only a podium, but who knows, you never know. But maybe nobody had it for Max today, as it probably turned out. But anyway, we will now turn to that podium. George Russell in the Mercedes, another top 5. Are we surprised at this point? We probably shouldn't be. P2, Charles Leclerc, maybe the safety car screwed him out of a chance. You never know. But in P1, setting the standard and letting it be and just doing the job this season, man. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Like I said, he can walk to Singapore now. He doesn't have to race in Singapore, and he will still probably win the championship running away. Thoughts on the podium?
I mean, it was unfortunate. Leclerc, we thought maybe Russell could hold him up, and then he could kind of run off into the distance, but Max was just way too good, and breezed past Russell and everybody else that was in front of him, and just kind of rocked up to the back of Leclerc, and that was the end of that. Although Leclerc did pit out under the virtual safety car for, I don't even remember at this point. I believe it was one of the Aston Martin, maybe?
It was the Vettel retirement. Yeah.
So there was a virtual safety car there trying to take advantage of that. It did go back green as Leclerc was pitting. So I think that ended up being a really early stop but it was definitely worth the risk. And then so he was forced into that two-stop. So I think strategy just didn't really fall quite his way. Although I don't know, I will give this to Ferrari. I don't think they did anything wrong this weekend. There was nothing egregious. They did what they needed to do. Fun yellow colors, I guess. Happy anniversary to whatever they're celebrating this year. Yeah, at least they got the pole. They were able to celebrate that, and they didn't do anything wildly wrong. So good job, Ferrari.
Other than maybe letting their drivers call the strategy shots.
Yeah, that's
apparently that was the only part that was weird. But hey, at least they're listening to probably the most qualified people in their lineup right now.
Yeah, that's honestly that's their best bet. If we're just going to listen to the drivers, let's just commit to that decision and we'll just see what happens. Try again next year. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and what else can you say about Max Verstappen? You can throw whatever kind of engine penalties you want. It really doesn't matter. I mean, he was, P3 by the end of the first lap, and just slicing and dicing through the field. He's got that car working. He's got that specific car working on even another level from his teammate, and that's on another level from the rest of the field. It's kind of scary good. Feels like this is game over, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But dang, dominant. I don't want to call this dominant performance because it really wasn't, but it's impressive nonetheless.
Pre-safety car, granted, Leclerc pitted twice, but pre-safety car, he was like 23 seconds up the road.
Yeah.
So, everybody else is flattered that there was that safety car at the end, so the final result doesn't look half bad, but he was just sailing away once again.
Yeah.
So, props to him.
Here's the standard. Come find me.
Yep.
I did. So I guess here's the really only question with Max. Do you think he's going to shut out the rest of the season, or do you think this was one race where I thought maybe Ferrari with the home crowd advantage might be able to do something? They come up just short. I suspected maybe Singapore just because reliability could come up there, but after that, I don't know where I see him having a problem.
Post-summer break, it's just been another year. Like, I would say a lot of those races in the first half of the season, the Ferrari did look like the better car. And then it was just Ferrari shooting itself in the foot. But now it's like, I think Ferrari could execute absolutely perfectly, and I don't think there's anything that they can do to challenge Max at the moment. And maybe it's just these last 3 seconds have suited them spectacularly well, but it's hard to not predict Max to win every single one of these races at the end of the season here. So, yeah.
It'd be a hell of a streak if he can pull it off.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, no,
I was just going to say, I agree, because, we don't really have a championship battle, so now let's just set some records and see what happens.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You have found an angle to keep at least a lot of masses. I can't say all of them, but a lot of the masses tuning in. We'll have to see. Records are there to be broken. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
And Max will have a really good opportunity. Do we think he's going to wrap? Apparently mathematically he can wrap up the championship next race. Do we think that happens?
I guess I feel like for it to happen next race, just thinking would probably require a Ferrari disaster, which is not out of the realms of possibility, especially at Singapore. Thinking back to, oh God, what year was it? Where they collided into each other. Granted, that was.
Oh, that was in the rain.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the Vettel. That was the Vettel. That was the one where Fernando Alonso should have won that race off the line, and then all of a sudden Max just careens into him.
Yes.
And he did nothing wrong.
So if something like that happens to them, or Ferrari does what they've been doing all season, maybe. But I can see probably him wrapping it up in Austin. I also think that would be a nice little setting for it, because we went last year. There was quite a big contingent there for him. That or Mexico with Perez, and that would also be nice. I think it's going to be U.S. Mexico. That's what Hamilton used to do all the time. So that's just where I'm kind of waiting for it to happen, because this feels like a dominant Hamilton season. Late.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I have a funny feeling that it might not get wrapped up in Singapore, because I think the math. He's got to be really dominant, and I think you're right. I think Ferrari really have to do something wrong. But I think Suzuka, just, with the historic, that used to always be where championships got decided, I have a funny feeling that's where probably the math will work itself out. It'll be one probably short of Austin. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But there's still, like I've said many times before, there's still plenty of battles to look for up and down this grid. And we'll see if Max can put together one heck of a record-shattering performance if he can pull it off. So nothing in the conversation to say that he can't, at least at this point. All right, so endeth the Italian Grand Prix. We will take a quick break. We will pay some bills. We'll come back. We'll tell you where all the points are now situated. There's been some changes, at least in some of the constructors. Or actually, no, don't change it to the order, but the points have all changed. Let's put it that way. So come on back. We'll get into all that. We'll get into your reaction, the fan email segment. We've got a good number of submissions here. We'll talk about our awards. We'll talk about predictions. Someone's had a really good week. Stay tuned. Find out who it was. Come on back. Welcome back to Season 4, episode number 37 of the Outlap F1 podcast. As always, we're proud members of the Ship It Studios podcast network, and this is our 2022 Italian Grand Prix race review. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Deanna tonight, and we have just wrapped up a very semi-controversial Italian Grand Prix. But it ends up as kind of a fait accompli, Max Verstappen taking the win. So we're now going to get into where all the points and everything sit. Dee, take us through our driver top 10 standings.
Yes, so leading the championship still very easily is Max Verstappen on 335 points, and his closest title rival right now is Charles Leclerc on 219. In third is Sergio Perez with 210. In fourth is Mr. Consistency, George Russell with 203. In fifth is Sainz with 187. In sixth is Hamilton with 168. In seventh is Norris with 88. Ocon is eighth with 66. Alonso is ninth with 59. And Bottas is 10th with 46.
All right. And our constructors, pretty much the same type of theme. Red Bull Racing powertrains out in front, 545 dominating points. They lead Ferrari, who are in P2 with 406 points. Third is Mercedes on 371. Fourth is Alpine on 125. The McLarens at least now have 3 digits in their point total, but they are up to 107. They eat into the deficit a little bit. In sixth place is Alfa Romeo on 52. Seventh is Haas Ferrari on 34. Right behind them is AlphaTauri on 33. Aston Martin checks in with 25. And Nick DeVries now has a third of the Williams point total. That would be all 6 points. Nick has 2 of them. Woo!
Progress!
Yes, everybody has scored points and everybody has scored multiple points. All right, enough of our takes on this race. We now open up the floor to you, the listener. It's our favorite, one of our favorite segments. It's our fan email segment. D, as James would say, it's your time to shine. Take it away.
All right, so starting with Rachel Fleming, any faint hopes that Latifi had of keeping his seat must be gone by now. Nick DeVries got points in the car despite coming in so late. Quite frankly, that Williams had the pace and Latifi has had his chance. Maybe it's a bit harsh, but he was only 2 places behind Nick on the grid. Also, Sky were claiming that the booing was because of the safety car. To be honest, I think the booing would have happened anyway when Max won the race, 11 in a row incoming. So I think kind of starting with Latifi, unless his dad pulls out quite a few more millions of dollars, I do think this is the end, unfortunately. Nice guy.
I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah. To be beat like that this weekend was just maybe one of the worst looks so far, unfortunately for him. So will it be DeVries? Will it be somebody else? We'll see. As for the booing, this has become commonplace, it seems, in recent years. Yep. Any comments on that?
Well, I will, whenever anybody mentions booing, I will break out my standard, I guess, politically correct answer in that as an American, I believe if you buy a ticket and you are unhappy with a competitor for whatever reason, you have the right to at least express it by booing. I don't have a problem with it as, like I said, as an American fan, as an American sports fan. As a race fan, I do believe that the podium is a celebration of, number one, everybody making it through without having major injury. So, when there's been a problem, they don't do a podium. That's why they don't do it. I would choose not to boo as a race fan. That's just kind of how I always have attacked it. But if people are going to do it, I guess people are going to do it. As to Sky kind of covering it up and saying that it was or it wasn't, I mean, Bonotto tried to do the same thing. They said they were booing the FIA. I don't think so. I think they were booing the people. And it's a microcosm of kind of where the fandoms are, unfortunately. I don't like it. I don't subscribe to it. I don't do it. But yeah, I mean, if people are going to have their opinions, I guess I can't. I am not smart enough or strong enough to stop it at this point. So, yeah. But I don't think it was about the FIA. I don't think it was about that. I think it was the rivalry that maybe isn't between Charles and Max. Maybe it's probably just more frustration more than anything. Other than anything Max did, he didn't deserve it. He didn't do anything wrong.
Yep. I think it's just kind of unfortunately been where we're trending recently.
Yeah. And as to Latifi, I've been saying that I think that what Williams just want to do is see out the end of this contract and then make an announcement. It just keeps having more and more proof against why he should be in the car the longer this has gone on. I think Williams is trying to be very respectful here and at least saying, well, you have a chance. But I don't think they're taking the money. I think they're fully funded. I think they know that. And I think they're just going to say, respectfully, we thank Nick for his contributions and we're moving on with maybe Nick DeVries or maybe, I feel bad. I want to say Logan Sargent so bad, but he has had such a bad run of luck since that win in Austria. So he hasn't shown particularly well. And, maybe I hope whatever the decision, I hope it's not the Johnny come lately. If Nick DeVries has earned it because of the form that he showed here, then that's fine. But don't have it be because it's just the name that pops up of the day.
Agreed. All right, next up, Dave Doherty says, Red Bull have developed a legendary car and team. I mean, I'm absolutely impressed with the team this year. Do you think this is the Red Bull era? I think there's not many signs pointing against them. It's very hard, and I mean, things can turn on a dime in the off season, but right now it feels very Mercedes in the hybrid era or beginning of the hybrid era. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any empirical evidence to say against it. The only thing that's different here than it was with Mercedes is the Mercedes, both cars were supremely dominant. And it was just which one was going to win on that particular day. Here, the second car, Perez's form, his pace in qualifying hasn't been nearly what Max's level has been. And Red Bull is probably fine with it that way because this way they don't have to manage, two guys going for the same spot of road or any of that other stuff like the Mercedes did. So it could be the beginning of the Max era. I think we're seeing that. I don't know that we're seeing Red Bull as a team being quite as dominant. But Max right now in that car with Adrian Newey with his golden handcuffs on him, that's a tough thing to beat. Somebody's got to come up with something new. I mean, how do you beat it? Well, how you beat it is you come up with something new, innovative, and something that hadn't been tried before. So all the aerodynamicists can go to work, hopefully, over the offseason, come up with something. And we'll see as this set of regulations gets more refined, the grid come closer together. I think, if Mercedes don't go in the direction that they went in this year and they come back with a more competitive car, they could be more in the mix. Ferrari had the opportunity in the power vacuum to take it, and we watched them literally fumble it away. So, there's been competition here. It's not like it's a complete whitewash, but right now Max is just on another level. So it could be, if there's an era, I think it's the Verstappen era, not necessarily a Red Bull era.
Fair enough. Next up, the formula says, 1, safety car / red flag to end the race or not. The podium finishers likely would have been the same, just not as exciting to see bumped for the fans. 2, the amount of tinfoil hats being worn by a certain fan base recently is exhausting. 3, at this point, 99% of George haters are also Mercedes fans. How messed up is that? 4, did DeVries strengthen his position for a 2023 drive? So starting with number 1, safety car red flag, podium probably would have been the same. I tend to agree that. I think Sainz, though, would have had a decent chance. He was about 7 seconds behind and lapping about a second faster. And he was on 7 laps, younger tires, and he was on softs versus Russell on the hards. So I think there was a decent chance for Sainz there. But unfortunately, we didn't get that little shootout at the end.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the only one that may have changed the podium. I don't think Leclerc, without the safety car, has a chance to catch Verstappen. If the safety car comes in and they get going, it's a 2-lap shootout, 1-lap shootout, anything can happen on that. We've seen all that happen before. All it takes is Max to lock up going into that first chicane, and, it's a completely different ballgame. But he wasn't going to catch him on pure pace going up to that. The only one that would have maybe changed, I think you're right, would have been Sainz possibly on Russell. And I don't even know that would have been a tough battle. Sainz just had to get there. This is the only question was he going to get there? Was he not? So, that's my comment on point one.
But Leclerc, after his second pit stop, for him to catch up to Max, had to lap a second a lap faster. And he came out the gate lapping about a half a second slower.
Yeah, I was going to say it was at his max, I think he was like a half a second quicker.
Yeah.
So he was just going to run out of time.
Yeah. So to the amount of tinfoil hats being worn, yes, there are quite a few. I am just so ready to just, like, Abu Dhabi, like, I just want to block it from my memory. Like, I know it was like a whole big thing and it shouldn't happen and blah, 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 and I don't disagree, but I'm just sick of it.
Life is fundamentally unfair. And bad things happen to good people. If you just take that rule of life and apply it, that's the end result of this. It's always going to be the end result of it. You can want to and demand and tweet about relitigating it all you want. It's not going to change. And the second Mercedes dropped that appeal, it ended. You got to, at some point, you can prove the point 10 times if you want. It was a mistake. It was the wrong call. We said it at the time. We did like 3 shows about it at the time. I don't want to continue to talk about this damn thing. Life is unfair and bad things happen to good people.
We've had the resolution to that situation, whether you like it or not. It has been resolved. We move forward. Moving on to the third point. At this point, 99% of George haters are also Mercedes fans. I feel like, personally, I don't see that George getting that much hate, but I mean, it's hard to argue with all of his performances this season. Every single race he's finished, once again, has been in the top 5, and that kind of consistency. I think at times, like outright pace, Lewis has looked better. He did start from the back of the grid today, so we didn't kind of get to see them kind of 1-to-1. But Lewis did have a very impressive race today. But yeah, he's done his job exactly how he needs to do it.
No, I mean, to come in, expectations on him were high. Especially given the one performance that he had in that car before, where he could have easily won that race in on the Bahrain outer track, and, just some bad luck and a poor pit stop, cost him. He was easily the quickest car that entire weekend. So, I mean, to come in and to do the job with all that pressure on him, as young as he is dang impressive. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of George hate, but I don't go necessarily looking for it either. So if there is it out there, it's kind of weird. It's probably I would venture to say it's the same 2 and 3 are kind of interconnected here, on your point here, but, I guess I'll leave that there. And did DeVries strengthen his position for 2023 drive? Absolutely. He did. He is now in the conversation. He was not anywhere in anybody's conversations that I had heard. We may, apparently Alpine has got all this test time that they were going to give to Piastri that they now are not going to. So who sits in that car and who does their FP1 sessions? They still have to declare who that's going to be. So there's still a lot of dominoes. If the championship isn't all that compelling, the domino effect of what's going to happen in the driver market this year is compelling as hell. It's crazy. There's so many different permutations going out. It seems like it's a new hot name every minute. The silly season has lived up to it and then some this season.
Absolutely. Fully agree. So next up, we are checking says ending under safety car is always lame to me, even if it's what should have happened here and in the past. Red flag restarts of under 5 laps seems to be the best way to compromise. That is my personal opinion. We talked about that earlier. Moving along. Next up.
However, I do love the handle. I love we are checking. And it's got a Ferrari logo on it. So clap for that.
Yes. Next up, I'm going to mess this up. Chavez move. Sorry. I was really rude.
I think it's Schumacher, Verstappen, Max V. Something like that. I think that's probably everybody who they're rooting for. In a handle.
So I'm not supposed to be able to read it.
No.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel a bit better. I was really rooting for Daniel to have an easier weekend. I just want to see him come out on top before he leaves McLaren. He deserves it. I do think this is one of his best races of the year. I also would love to see him have a really great result before the end.
Yeah, no, totally. I was gutted. I confirmed on Twitter earlier, my hat went flying. As soon as I saw him fall down the grid, I think I uttered something not appropriate for work and banged my head on the table like Toto Wolff this morning. So to my neighbor underneath me, I apologize if I woke them up at 8:30 or 9 o'clock this morning. But it was all there. He had done such a good job. He was actually on the pace this weekend. And then the engine just dies. So I legit hope that it ignites some fire in him, that he can carry it through and just be on the pace for the rest of this year. I don't know if McLaren are going to catch Alpine for fourth. I'm beginning to doubt it at this point, just because I thought this was probably their best chance, and they couldn't really take a huge chunk of advantage on it. So if that doesn't happen, I want Danny Rick to have some glory with his time left on the team. So, their pit wall is still behind him. I listened to both of them, and I wanted to, I've been wanting to see if there was any difference. They're not treating him any different right now on the pit wall. It's the same stuff.
All right, moving on, kind of on the same line, Hard or Soft F1 said, so sad Daniel had reliability issues and that we had to finish under safety car. Agreed. Next up, Wes Polar says, muting the crowd during the interviews was weak sauce. When did they mute the crowds? I'm not sure I caught that.
Well, they were selective with the audio, apparently from people who were there. The Max part of the interview, before he goes up to the podium, I guess the booing was fairly profound. And then on the Sky broadcast, you really couldn't hear it. So if they, tuned one actuator down and left the other mics a little more higher, you could get that effect off and basically mute the booing. So, I would rather it be an awkward moment so that, if you're going to show yourselves that way, then you got to own it. So, you're there, you're the voice of the fan, be the voice of the fan. If that's what you choose to do, I guess that's what you're going to do.
All right. Interesting stuff. All right. Finally, Quentin Warden says, hey guys, wanted to give my 2 cents since the safety car procedure is front and center again. Full disclosure, I'm a Ferrari fan, so I don't want to sound like I'm just moaning my team came up short. Max earned and deserved the win. I didn't catch any of the feeder series races this morning either, but I guess there was also controversy there too. It's becoming a joke. We are stuck wondering whenever something happens, and from some of the radio calls that they broadcast, so are the teams. This isn't backwards dirt track racing, it's F1. My personal preference would be for a red flag to be thrown if an incident happens when there aren't enough laps to get back to green. But just the fact that there is no clear direction after all that went down to end last season shouldn't be the case. They need a hard plan starting from, say, 10 laps to go and have it published as a flow sheet, and it would clear everything up. On a bright note, what a race for De Vries. Points in his debut in the Williams. Someone get that man a drive for 2023. Regards, Quentin. Sounds exactly like what you were saying, Andy.
I was going to say, I'm clapping. Mm-hmm. I love it. Quentin and I should run the FIA.
Yes, absolutely.
In terms of, just to clarify what the F3, and I think that's the controversy he's referring to. So the F3 race, there was a wreck with about 5 laps to go that they did red flag, and it should have been a red flag. But because of the F3, the feeder races, the F3 and the F2 races, especially the feature races on race day, have a very limited window with which to get those races in, because you have a driver's parade that is a certain set of time. Once you get into what I like to call the F1 program, that stuff is down to the minute, and it is down to the second. There is no changing that program for whatever reason. That thing is going to go ahead when it's supposed to go ahead, because you're literally syncing effectively 1 billion people trying to watch the same thing at the same time. So you have to be kind of rigid with it. So what happened in the F3 races, they had the wreck. There was damage to one of the barriers. They were going to need about a half an hour, 45 minutes to fix it. So they decided to end the race. Now, what happened, the controversy that started out with is, okay, the race is now over. Well, now there's all these track limit violations that hadn't been announced that either were going to get announced either in the course of the last few laps or were going to get announced after the race that now get announced post effectively the end of the race. And Victor Martins, the eventual F3 champion, was one of the guys who got a 5-second penalty. So he was not sure where his final order was. And meanwhile, all these other 5-second penalties are popping up and who finishes where. And there was this good 25 minutes of not really anybody knowing really who finished where, other than where they finished on the road. So it's the same type of problem. Shouldn't have to take that long. Shouldn't have to take that long to announce it. And because it's setting a championship, it was even more. I felt bad for him because he was just getting put to the emotional ringer, and then they finally told him he won. The emotional release was actually quite the picture there. But yeah, I mean, we got to find a way to get this right. It should be the pinnacle of motorsport. It should be officiated like the pinnacle of motorsport. I agree with that.
All right. That wraps up fan email.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I love the fact that this is getting to be a longer segment. It makes it good that you guys are interacting with us. We appreciate all of the interactions throughout the whole weekend, good, bad, whatever it is. We take all opinions here, whether we agree with them or not. We'll tell you if we agree with them or not, but we welcome them all. And thank you very much for submitting everything. All right, so we will move on to our awards, and we will start with the Weekly Rubbish Award. D, take it away. What's your thought on the rubbish?
The FIA. This is my first time in a long time. It has not been Ferrari, so props to Ferrari. Anyway, it's the whole engine allocation thing and the taking 25 years to figure out what the starting grid is. And yeah, there's a lot of reforms that need to happen there. I guess we can also lump in the safety car rule, although I will at least give them that they followed the rules to the letter of the law. So they did that, so I won't be too harsh about that. That does need to be changed longer, but this engine allocation situation is just nonsense.
All right, so James chimed in and said losing out on the shootout at the end, that was his rubbish. John's rubbish award goes to the engine penalties. He's with you there, D. When you can't figure out for an hour who is starting where, maybe the system needs some further tweaking. And he goes, honorable mention to the Soldier Field drainage system. Looked like a scene from Noah's Ark today. Yes, it did, but hey, it made the Bears win a game they weren't supposed to have any shot at. So we can play them all in the rain if you want. I'm good with that. But anyway, that's a Chicago thing, but we'll leave that there. My rubbish award with respect to this race, the Monza venue. And again, I'm reading too many stories of folks getting harassed, not air quote fitting in. I read one horrific story about an American who had traveled, basically had to watch the race from an Airbnb because she had, I think her leg was in some sort of a cast, or, she couldn't quite walk. She was on crutches, and she's sitting on the side of the road. Nobody even wants to help her get up. What the hell is going on? This is crazy. Have we forgotten how to do events? I mean, it just feels like since COVID, everybody has forgotten how to do events, monitor fan behavior. We've gotten these massive crowds. These venues are not prepared for the size of the crowds. We've said this over and over and over again. It happened to us at Coda last year. Mm-hmm. It happened here. It happened in Austria. It happened in Zandvoort. And it's not the same fan bases doing the problems. It's everybody. I think there's too much alcohol flowing through these places, and people are just not being very nice to each other. And it's just tiring. And, the sport is about inclusion. That's what it should be. And again, with the damn flares, I saw a lot of red flares today, whether they be orange or red, green, yellow, whatever, whether it's F1, MotoGP, or a soccer match. These things have got to go. They do no good. I would hate to be the poor SOB behind somebody with one of these damn flares. They got to go. They got to go. So into the bin with ye flares, into the bin with ye people who don't want to help people fit in, damn it. Just be nice to each other. Come on, man. Just sucks.
Yeah.
Anyway, rant over.
I agree with that. I think, it's great that the sport's getting so popular, but they're letting way too many people into these events, which also sucks because it would make, if we cut down on the actual people that should be in these stadiums, the tickets themselves are going to get ludicrous. They already are.
They're already there.
But it does become a safety issue. And no way that this is the amount, trying to cross a bridge in Coda took 30 minutes, the amount of people they try to cram in there. And it's just all of the city, like the traffic, the roads, everything gets bogged down. Like it's just unreal. And you just see every single weekend there's that graph. It's like this, hundreds of thousands of people showed up this weekend. And it just feels like each race is trying to one up each other. And it's just leading to a lot of issues. And nobody has the infrastructure for that kind of stuff, except for maybe Indianapolis. But
yeah, I would say that's probably the only one that knows how to do it. And they do it by actually keeping the crowd spread out. You know, there's the snake pit. There's places for people to go. This is 100,000+ people all in one area, all at the same time. And I guess part of the other issue was the track didn't open till like 8 a.m. local, and the F3 race starts at like 8:15. So you open the gates, and Chris Medland, was tweeting, "There's not a whole lot of people here." Well, they're all outside trying to get in, And I saw some of the queues. It was crazy, like people waiting for the bus, which was apparently the only way to get there. If you expect to collect big money, you got to spend some big money to make these things hospitable for just the regular fan. Eventually, people are going to take their money and their entertainment dollar and go somewhere else, and it sucks because they have such an opportunity to capitalize on this wave of popularity, and it just seems like these venues are just dying over it. It just sucks. Just sucks. Anyway, all right. So we move on to the analysis paralysis, and this was probably a tough award. I had to stretch myself a little bit. So Dee, what's your thought on this?
I'm going with Red Bull and Perez. So at the end, they pitted him lap 42, so about 10 laps left. To change from the hards that he'd been on all race to the softs. He, at that point, was about 14 seconds ahead of Sainz, whoever was behind him, or Hamilton, I think it was. Hamilton.
It was Hamilton, yeah.
So I understand at that point, I mean, this is all hindsight being 2020. They didn't know that safety car was going to come out, but had they just left him out there, he would have stayed in 5th. But because he did that, he lost track position to Hamilton and Norris. And he didn't finish in 7th because McLaren also pitted Norris. I think when you have a gap of 14 seconds, I feel like, yes, those tires are probably falling off, but I don't think his pace at that point was so bad that you wouldn't kind of risk it. So but I also understand why they did it, but there really wasn't any crazy bad strategy calls today, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I mean, mine is kind of a weak one, and it's a self-wound that, you assume the race is going to get going. And Lando's pit wall called him in, and take him out of P6. He only loses the one position in that final safety car sequence. Put on a used set of soft tires and see what he could get out of it. His lap times were pretty competitive, even with Perez, even in that, even though Perez had probably newer tires than Lando did there. But so I understand why McLaren did what they did. I get it. I got the move. I didn't have a problem with it at the time. You just don't expect the race to just end like that. But that's probably the closest thing I have in terms of a strategy mistake, and it's just kind of how it played out. I don't think James has one. John said maybe Perez in that late pit stop. I'm still not sure where they did that. Probably had the pace to stay in that position as well. So I think you and John are kind of on the same wavelength there. We move on to the dark horse of the day. Dee, what's your thought?
I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he was nowhere in those first few laps. Like, he was running around 18th for, I think, a hot minute there. So I really wasn't expecting him to do too much, but he did really quite the set on mediums. And then kind of be the soft work at the end. So great work.
James has selected Nick DeVries. John has selected DeVries and also Lewis Hamilton for the Great Recovery Drive. I'm going to go with Lando Norris simply because, what he had to overcome today. I listened to a lot of his radio, and I thought today he was probably one of the more active and awake. Sometimes he sounds like he's almost half asleep when he's driving. It's kind of the weirdest thing. But today he was on the radio, confirmed, this is what I want to do. Let's do this. Let's try that. If he can be awake as a team leader, then that's great, at least moving forward. And they didn't do him any favors. Obviously, the launch map thing in the beginning, the bad pit stop, and then the obviously the pitting at the end there. But and he managed to get through it and still pull out a result. So I thought that was impressive. So maybe I'm being a bit of a homer there, but that's where I'm going to go. But I will do that because my driver of the day has got to be Nick DeVries from Sippin' Coffee. I want to say it's like a mochaccino or something like that. I want to have it a creative coffee, and he's sipping it, and he does a spit take, and the next thing you know, he's now scoring points, and he's relegated Nicholas Latifi to being the 21st driver in a 20-driver championship. He is my driver of the day. Let's enjoy the positivity there. Dee, what's your thought on driver of the day?
Mine is also Nick DeVries, and yeah, just great, fantastic, getting points on debut, very rare thing, and just a driver that should have had an opportunity, I think, at a seat kind of over the years, former F2 winner. It was really lovely to see, and a nice little story, and it was just a fantastic drive, fantastic weekend for him to do that.
All right. James has gone with George Russell for driver of the day, and John has selected Max. Shocked that he wasn't in the lead even sooner, honestly. I could have picked Max. I think we all could have picked Max, but I'm going to go with the positive thought of this. Max will probably win plenty of other drivers of the day from us, at least for me, so I'm going to go with DeVries for my driver of the day. All right, moving into our predictions. All right, we've had interesting stuff here. All right, I finished the day with 3 points. I got the pole sitter, I got the clear right, I got the bonus pick, and I got the P5 also of the prop bet. James finishes the day with 4 points, so his form, he's now clipping at my heels. He has shown some really good prediction form. He got the pole sitter, P3 in the podium. He got the bonus pick with P4, and he also got the prop bet because both Ferraris did see the checkered flag today. John checks in with 2 points. He got P1 on the podium. He got the P5 bonus pick. And Deanna is the winner of this weekend's predictions. She finishes with 4 points. Qualifying time, P1 podium, P2 podium. You almost swept the thing, and the fastest lap time as well. And that has tightened up the standings yet again. John is still out there with 44. Deanna's right on his heels now with 42. I check in third place on 39, and I'm only 1 point above James. It was a while ago. James was, way out of it.
Yeah.
He has rallied. I may be in trouble. I may be in the basement yet again by the end of this thing. So I will do my best to try to bring the predictions game. It's a good thing we got a couple weeks I can let my brain cool off and try to see what I can do. But, it's tight standings amongst this podcasters today. All right. So I guess that's the end of what we generally talk about here. Dee, any final thoughts? We get a bit of a break. We get this weird 2-week break after this. This is the weird part of the schedule.
This is where Russia was supposed to be.
That's true.
So this is why, which I'm now looking forward to the 2-week break because this is actually the last time I will be in this setting ever. I'm moving, and the next time you see me, I will be in New York City and not in Hoboken anymore.
Nice.
That's where I've been this whole time. So I just let everybody say New York.
The end of the hallway. The hallway. We never really got to know ye, as it turned out.
I will miss this apartment. I love this apartment. But, yeah.
You mean we're not going to have the street races anymore in the background? Or?
I will at least live on a slightly less busy street, but we'll still be in New York, so there will still be sirens and chaos and who knows what else. But yeah, hopefully fewer street races, so I could, sleep.
Well, that would be
nice.
Good.
Yeah.
That would be good. That would be good. Well, congratulations on moving up, moving on up, as they say, and wish you well in the new apartment. I will love to see it, and feel free to post a picture or two when you get all settled in. And, next time we have you on, we'll make sure to see what you think of the new spot. I hope the move all goes well. I know that's never fun.
It's always
moving
an
in a
adventure.
city. Moving in any city, regardless. I've only done it once. I never want to do it again. I've acquired many more things since I moved, and I think if I actually had to try to move it now, it would be twice the effort that it first was.
Yeah, I had a couple meltdowns the last time we did this. At least we were moving up into a 5th floor walk-up is where I live now, so I will at least be going down a couple floors. So less stairs might make this whole thing a little less stressful. That's what I'm hoping.
No elevator yet?
No.
Oh, perish the thoughts. Perish the thoughts.
I don't have that
It's
kind
New
of money.
York. What am I talking about? Apparently, I'm on a
No.
completely different scale than you.
Laundry, dishwasher, none of that. No.
Well, seriously, in all seriousness, I hope it all goes well. I hope you get settled in
Thank you very
as
much.
quickly and as easily as you can. And we'll make fun of you if you have moving stories. But other than that, that's,
Yes.
don't want to have that actually happen. But
I love a good moving nightmare story. So I'm sure I'll come back for some of those.
And you'll regale us, and we will be entertained all by it. But as we said, we will go to Singapore for the first time since 2019. Long live the hashtag F1 night race. It will be good to go back. Don't know what the race will actually be like because we haven't been there in a while. So we just need to see what these cars do. There may be a whole nother bevy of news that comes out between now and then. These teams get a break, and decisions tend to get made. And now they're not all taking a break. So if anything happens, check out our Twitter, check out our social media. We will try to keep you updated as we learn things. And thank you both to James and John for contributing all the way up and down the agenda today, even though they weren't on. James had himself some fun in Austin. Heartbreak Hotel for Texas football. I thought they had them, and 1 point short. But anyway, we will debrief all that in a couple weeks when we get back for our Singapore preview. And so for John, for Deanna, for James, it's been Andy. This is always fun to do. And as always, may all your laps be fast.